let's see. Okay. So I was assigned AJAX. I wasn't too excited about this just because it's about as clear as mud for me. So David, if you have anything that you want to correct me on, or if you have anything that you want to add in, by all means, chime in, please. Okay, so AJAX, I know David had kind of gone through this. It's an asynchronous JavaScript and XML, and so I was kind of confused about what asynchronous exactly meant. So I'm going to kind of clear that up. So if it made sense to me, so I'm just going to I found some things online, and I'm just going to read them. It says, when you execute something synchronously, you wait for it to finish before moving on to another task. When you execute something asynchronously, you can move on to another task before it finishes. That being said, in the context of computers, this translates into executing a process or task on another thread. A thread is a series of commands or block of code that exist as a unit of work. The operating system can manage multiple threads and assign a thread a piece of processor time before switching to another thread to give it a turn to do some work. At its core, a processor can simply execute a command. It has no concept of doing two things at one time. The operating system simulates this by allocating slices of time to different threads. Now, if you introduce multiple cores or processors into the mix, then things can actually happen at the same time. The operating system can allocate time to one thread on the first processor and then allocate the same block of time to another thread on a different processor. All of this is about allowing the operating system to manage the completion of your task while you can go on in your code and do other things. Asynchronous programming is a complicated topic because the semantics of how things tie together when you can do them at the same time. So I don't know if that's about as clear as mud too. So it just made a little bit more sense to me because asynchronous is where it does things in blips of time, and it's something that constantly updates. AJAX isn't a programming language. I don't know if has anybody heard of XML?
Yep.
Okay, I've never heard of XML, and I thought it was pretty interesting. And so I have some information on XML too, but if everybody's heard of it, and I'm just the only one that hasn't. So anyway, so XML, I'll go ahead and explain it. XML is a software and hardware independent tool for storing and transporting data. It's an extensible markup language, and it's a language a lot like HTML. And it was designed to store and transport data, and it was designed to be self-descriptive, and it's a W3C recommendation. And the difference between XML and HTML is that, again, XML was designed to carry data with focus on what data is, and HTML is designed to display data with a focus on how data looks. And XML tags are not predefined like HTML tags are. So what I thought was pretty interesting about the XML is that the tags on XML, you can kind of basically pull them out of the air. So you can say, our open close tag, or, picture open close tag, whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be exactly what HTML has designed it to be. So anyway, that just kind of breaks up what AJAX is. So AJAX uses a combination of browser built-in XML HTTP request object to request data from the web server, and JavaScript and HTML DOM to display or use the data. And so this is a map basically on how AJAX works. And so you have your browser that accesses the server, and the server responds back to the browser. And so I'll move on. These are just some methods that you can use for the HTML or XML HTTP request. And then the unready state change property. Now this one, David, I don't know. I ran into this example that I remember you showing on your code, where it has the ready state of 4 and the status of 200, which means the 4 is that it's valid, and then the 200 is that it's found, I'm assuming. But on my code that I have, let me pull out of this. Let's see. The code that I have, and you guys have probably recognized this if you guys have taken 230. But this has the, can you guys see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This has, here has the web, where you put under the XML HTTP request under a variable, and then you access that variable through throughout the function. And then so you go through and you have the variable, which is XML HTTP request dot open, and that's where you access your page that you're getting your API from. And then the send, and then dot onload. And so the dot onload is that when the page loads, it refreshes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So so the onload is when you've received the request, or when the server has responded to you, right?
Right.
And then the information that it responds with there, that's all specific to their API, like of what information you can access and what you're displaying, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So like on this API, and I don't know if you guys knew this, but I discovered today that Weather Underground is terminating. Did you guys know that? This API is no longer going to be any good. So
just hold on till my fluency is graded.
I know, right? Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know how much longer it's supposed to be valid, but they're terminating it. So anyway, so this, on this one, I can change it for, for instance, I have this going for Des Moines, Iowa, which is where I'm at right now. And then I have another one for Dallas, Texas, and another one for St. George, Utah, which is where my dream job is sitting. So you can change this API around the location of this API just by changing, the state and the town. But it's pulled from this here. All the information is pulled from here, this site. So, I don't know much more to explain. I don't know if I did a thorough enough job, but that's basically, I still am kind of up in the air about it because I just don't have as much exposure. That's about the only exposure I have to AJAX. So, sorry, I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
I think it was really good. The only other question I had was, has anyone used AJAX, or know if you can use AJAX and like send a request to GitHub like on your own files and your own system, or is it only built for like APIs elsewhere?
I think you can. I think you can. I think it just has to be under like a JSON code, because I know that there's one that I have. Let's see if I can find it. Chris, did you take CIT 230?
Was that the web design one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a while ago though.
Okay, so let me pull this up real quick and then see if it refreshes your memory. So let me share my screen again. Okay, so sorry, my baby's gonna start crying. So if you can see, this one is the JSON activity that we did. and it is, do you remember this one?
Yep.
Okay. So on this one, it says that the site that you're pulling from is actually GitHub's site. And then it's just, it's JSON coded. So the exact steps on how you do that, I could not tell you. But I know it's possible. Yeah, it's possible.
Well, that's when I did my AJAX assignment, I created my own JSON file, and I just kind of, I guess, hosted it on my own GitHub, because once you add it in as a file, it can have its own little web page, kind of just like all of your other examples that you show. And so I just I hosted it on my homepage so that I could click on it. There may be an easier way to get the web address, like the URL of the file you create in JSON, but that's how I did mine. I just, typed it all in, whatever I wanted, in the right format.
So is this something that you can do kind of like how I have in my brackets, I have a bunch of different, I'm sorry guys. I have a bunch of different files that are connected to my pages, or does it have to be something completely separate that's loaded into Git?
It has to be its own URL.
Oh,
yeah,
its own
that's
URL.
how mine is. And it's just like an array, basically.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
The thing that I don't, or go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, otherwise I'm done. So go ahead.
Well, I have two thoughts. One is I wanted to go back to what you said about the synchronous and asynchronous.
Mm-hmm.
But I also wanted to say, there's a part of AJAX that I think I don't understand because, I work with WooCommerce, and so we have, you can turn on AJAX for add to cart. So, that it's an AJAX request. And I don't understand how, and I know that's, super specific, but it makes me confused about AJAX because I'm that makes no sense to me. That just seems like JavaScript to me. I add something to the cart,
right.
through JavaScript, which isn't an XML request. You know what I mean? All
right.
This seems like you're pulling, data from a JSON XML file. But I feel like I hear AJAX used in other ways.
Yeah. I wish I had an answer.
Yeah.
But you reminded me that AJAX is actually, I had read that AJAX is something that's on the rise, because Google uses it like crazy, and Amazon's just now starting to come out and use it, as well. So, it's something that I think that would be beneficial to really get under our belts.
Yeah. It just doesn't make sense to me that you would need a JSON file for everything you do AJAX wise, because
right.
It's dynamic to what the user's doing. So that's where I'm I feel like I'm missing something.
Yeah. No, I can't answer your question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know. David, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
I don't have anything offhand, no. No, can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think you can turn the asynchronous on and off with the parameter is true or false just right after your URL, or so. I don't know if that's what you were referring to earlier about turning it on and off. That may be a possibility. I don't know, other than I know you can use AJAX for, I've only used it just a handful of times. I'm no expert or anything. You can use it just for other files other than JSON. Even just a text file, you can get a text file off of another server from wherever and pull it through to, I don't know. It's interesting.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
So back on what you were saying about synchronous and asynchronous, and I totally think you get this, but it's partially my benefit just to state what I understand, is that synchronous is like putting something into a database. Like you were saying, it's like a process completing. I load the page so this thing happens. And I think what this is saying, it's asynchronous. It happens without a page load. It happens without any action on the user's part, without
right.
finishing any other process. So in our weather site, if that data changes, it'll just change the page, even though I didn't do anything to change the page. So I think
exactly.
is that how you understand it?
Yeah, and that's kind of how I understood it. That it was just like bits and pieces that continually are loading instead of, one complete load kind of
Right.
thing. Yeah.
Which doesn't make sense because you use the onload function, which is a
Right.
JavaScript event. So I'm like, there's got to be something else in there that's like on state change, and maybe that's that ready state part.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I bet that's what it is. Cool.
So, but thank you guys.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you do.
Chris?
My next.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I guess I'll just share my whole screen. And okay. So pretty brief slides. Let me I'll just use the site. Showing everyone my stuff. All right. So the transforms in CSS, it's really just different effects that you can use. I don't know, to be honest, how these are all that different from the animations and stuff. It's just you're doing different things with different elements, right? So the transforms, the basic ones are going to be translate, which is just moving an element from its current position. That's not an effect that you see on screen like an animation would be. That's literally just like it shows up somewhere else. So if you use that, it's not like it slides it. You don't get to see that happen. It just like literally the element or the div or whatever in this case is going to be somewhere else. You can also rotate it, so you can change the different angles that they're on. There's a 2D rotation that you're just doing X and Y, and there's a 3D, which is where you start to warp it to make it obviously look a little bit three-dimensional. That one kind of gets, at least in my opinion, they start to look a little weird when you do that. I think most of the time you can make them usable in animations and stuff with some functions, but yeah, anyways. So then you have scale, which just increases or decreases the element size based on the scale. There's a couple different syntax elements for that. You can do it based on, I think it had a width and length, or I'm sorry, like an X and Y, or you could just do it on one and it would do like overall. So like in this little code snippet I have, if I do scale at 0.5, the whole thing is now half, as big as it was. Or if you do like 2,3, then it's twice as wide and 3 times as tall. So pretty simple syntax there. Skew basically just warps it. I mean, I don't know a better way to put that. It just it skews it. It does that. I didn't think it looked very interesting. I mean, I guess you can use it in some cases. It was kind of weird looking to me. But again, it's just changing how your elements look. That one's done in degrees. So if you look at the code, some of them are by degrees. Some of them can be by just like decimal points. They accept different parameters. You just have to make sure you're using the right one. And then if you want to combine any of them, you need to use matrix. So something that I found if you look like halfway through the code snippet, I have under scale, I have transform rotate by 20 degrees, and then I have transform scale right after that. When I tried to execute that, rotate did nothing. It didn't even like execute it or anything. It just went right to scale, and that was the only one that was executed. So the only way that I found to get more than one of these transforms to work on any sort of element is to use matrix, because that combines all of it into one. And now the syntax is literally just like 6 numbers that you throw in there. So you have to be mindful of which position you're putting the different numbers in if you're going to use multiple. But that's the way that you would do that. So before I show like the code or my site, just want to go over it, make sure I touch on a few things I found while I was doing this. So when you make adjustments to your styling, and I think we probably have all figured this out by now, whether it's directly in a CSS sheet, whether it's an HTML or JavaScript, you're going to have slightly different syntax about how these things are used. So when you call any of the transform, they're functions really. When you call any of those, you just have to be mindful of how you're doing that depending on where you're calling it from. So like manipulating it in JavaScript, you're going to have to put quotes around the functions and the styling that you're using, where we don't do that in other places.
Can you
Again,
say that again? Sorry, can you go back over that?
Sure.
What do we have to put quotes around?
Sorry?
What do we have to put quotes around?
If you're doing it in JavaScript, like you're manipulating it from script, there are certain things you need to put quotes around when you adjust the styling, and I'll show my code and try and find an example of where that's applicable. Where like in a CSS sheet, you don't put quotes around any of that, and JavaScript, you would need to. Let me pull that up actually while we're talking about it. I can't see anything with this speaker window. Okay. So let's see. Okay, so if we look like right here, if I'm going to call it from inside of script using JavaScript, then I have to use quotations around the function. The variables and stuff I can leave out of that, but then I have to go back to using the quotations.
That is really interesting. You have your quotation inside? Oh, I see it. Okay.
It just
You're
creates
just
it as
concatenating, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now, why it has to be a string, I am not 100% sure, but it's like that in other places too. So, anywho, let me get back to.
Thank you.
Yeah. The other thing is just to remember, like, depending on what these are things that I ran into where I was like, why isn't this doing anything? To remember to put either the pixel or degree, depending on what you're manipulating, because those are required. And then,
can you do percentages?
I want to say that that's not needed because but I'm not positive. You might be able to.
Okay.
I want to say that you can. I can't remember which ones.
Okay.
The only ones that I can think of were like, technically, I guess it's a percentage is for scale, but you're just doing when I use that, I never did a percentage. I just used like a number or a decimal. So I didn't try that one out, but you might be able to.
Okay.
The other thing I found was when I was using rotate, so it rotates clockwise, but it can also rotate counterclockwise. And to do that, you just have to use a negative degree value. You don't like put it at like 300 and something because it's just going to be weird. So just use negative if you want to go the other way. And then, we went over this one. Yeah, I was just going to ask, does anyone know why, why that is the case? Has anyone looked into transforms or know why you can only execute one if you've listed two? I can only come up with like an educated guess, just thinking that if you're running through the code, it's only going to execute a transform method once, and so it's going to go to like the most recent styling adjustment, which would be the last one, but that's just a guess.
Yeah, that would seem like some kind of specificity issue.
Right. All right, so okay.
Oh, cool.
So this is just the different type of transformations that you can use. So I just have a standard one at the top, one that rotate's been used on. I don't know if you can read that, but that one's been scaled to half size. Again, this is skew, and you can skew it along the X or Y axis, and it just, it just does that depending on how you want to skew it. So matrix, that was another thing I wanted to go over. So in matrix, if you are, I think I adjusted that in my site style. All right, so in the matrix, if you want it to not be skewed, you have to offset the values. So like I have skew Y and skew X at offsetting values to keep it looking like a rectangle. If I hadn't, maybe I can just put 0 for those. Maybe that makes the most sense, but for some reason, if I remember, that was kind of weird looking. So anyways, just keep that in mind if you want it to be, the shape, whatever you're using, to keep them offset or try zeros. So these ones down here, the first two, the rotates, are ones I got from W3 schools. And I just used their code and manipulated it a little bit. But if you mouse over it, they go through a function essentially that just continuously transforms using rotate. And that one's just the 2-dimensional, and this one's the 3-dimensional. So, and that's kind of like when it does that, like rotating on that, I don't know, was it the Z-axis or whatever? I don't know when else you would really use that aside from doing stuff like this, because it just makes it look weird. But then the bottom two, I made one of them that just like continuously changes colors and rotates, flashes. I was trying to do like a railroad sign. And then the other one, so translate, it just moves it. Like there's no animation, it just moves it to wherever you've set the pixels. So I think that was all I have. I can go through the functions for the flipping. Those weren't really transform specific, but I put comments in there in case you guys want to look through that. Essentially, that's not for transform specific stuff. That's just about continuously calling a function if you've set an interval. So.
Yeah, cool. So do you have any examples of like when these would be used? Because they do seem gimmicky. So
that's really all. So the only thing I could think of, and I didn't really put I don't want to say I didn't put like the effort in, but like, the only thing I can think of is maybe if you're trying to I almost thought of like Pong, as weird as that sounds, of just like, I don't know, if you need to move something around the screen. But to be honest, like I can't think of anything that would. I mean, maybe if you wanted to like hard code a responsive design, then, instead of using something like Bootstrap that would do that for you, then I could see where, if you put it in your code where if the page width is getting all weird, then okay, we're going to start translating and moving stuff or scaling things down. I can see that being a practical use if you're checking, the width of the page or different elements and everything. If it gets too small, you can scale things down. But as far as like the rotating stuff, that mostly seems like just little styling gimmicks that you can do. I can't think of
anything practical.
Yeah, for those, I mean, the scaling I can definitely see. The other ones just seem like styling choices for doing, I don't know, just weird stuff.
So I'm just thinking about a class I had last semester where, like the little hamburger icon for your menu, it was actually 3 CSS divs, or just 3 divs.
Mm-hmm.
And then we styled it with CSS. And then when you did certain things, like it would turn into an X, so that you clicked on it to close it or whatever. So that's the only thing I can think of. Like maybe if you use divs to make like the little hamburger menu and that you hover over and maybe it gets bigger, and then when you click on it, then it turns into an X.
Yeah. Well, that's true. As far as like responsive design, like if you do like an on mouse over function for like even just your buttons to scale like 1.2 times bigger, so it just gets a little bit bigger when you mouse over.
Mm-hmm.
That could be used. But so I think that's probably the most practical design, is just, incorporating it with stuff like that. and like scaling stuff too. But I guess the rotating and the skewing and all that would really just be if you wanted to use those in your design, or if you have, if your imagination's bigger than mine. But
yeah, cool.
Any questions?
You're going to post your code, right?
Sorry?
Said you're going to post your code, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Right. Well, I will start here.
Good job explaining.
Yeah,
I like
that
that.
was good. That was really good. Cool. All right. You ready for me to share?
Go for
Right.
it.
Okay. Okay. So this is actually JavaScript events and local storage. So this is like a little buying club. I used to run a co-op for many years where you buy in bulk stuff. So you can put numbers here. So you've got this on mouse over, that makes this blue. But I've saved this. So this right now is saved in local storage. So I'm going to clear this right here. And then you can just see how it works first. So I'm going to say like, I'm going to buy for 100 people who want full and 20 who want small. And then I have this purchasing budget. So this is all JavaScript. This is an event that happens on change. And then we're going to say that you're going to get 8 apples in your basket. And there's 88 in the box, and the box is $25. And I need to order 10 boxes, and it's going to cost $250. And then this is how much I have left to spend. So all these calculations are JavaScript, and the events happen because I just change things. So like if I was like, oh, actually, I'm going to put 20 apples in there, you can see that changes. And then I can save this. So if I'm like, wow, I want to come back to this later, and I can actually I can leave this page, and then I can go, actually I want to go back to that, and it's still saved. So because that's being saved in local storage, and then I can clear it. So this was fun to do. There were a couple things I had to do to make it work. So like I have all these calculations happening. You can see that they were happening on change. Here you go, on change. But then when I was saving in local storage, that didn't work because none of these, like the budget and everything, didn't show up because there was nothing that had changed. So I also had to make it go in this code so that actually I did it here. So it was on load as well. So it's on load and on change, like for that. And yeah, so there are a number of other little things, like on focus and out of focus, but yeah, so that's my.
Very cool.
Thanks.
Good job.
Thanks. Cool.
Did we? Sorry, I'm trying to think. So did we go over JavaScript events last week?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Okay. And does anyone else want to share what they've done? And I'm just very concerned that we all get 4 spots. Like in our professional assignment, we have to make a link to 4 places that we taught in the
Oh, really?
video. Yes.
Because I don't know if you remember at the beginning of the semester, we had asked the teacher if it was okay if we just taught 3 times.
That's right. But in his professional like rubric, it says he wants to see 4 links. So that's why I'm like, even if we're on for 5 minutes, like I just don't want to have to be like, hey, can we do this thing? And remember you said that. I just want to be like, here's the link.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I agree, but he did specifically give us permission because of our large group number. So
yeah,
I don't know. Hopefully he doesn't go back on what he said, because I don't plan on preparing another lesson or anything.
Yeah. No, I agree, but I'm just like, I feel like if we, share something for a couple minutes and we can put a link to it and just put a note and be like, remember, we actually only taught 3 times because of our large group. But, I don't know. So, we can
I
do
wouldn't
whatever.
know what to share. I feel like my work is so below what most other people do. So
Well, I doubt it. It sounds good. Like you made your own JSON file?
that was it's like just text. I looked it up and it was pretty easy.
This is my home screen.
Nice. There you go.
Yeah, mine's pretty similar. I centered the text. That's about all I did different.
Nice. I have like color-coded buttons like, okay, these have been approved and like these have been submitted and these I haven't submitted yet, so they're not in a div yet.
Yeah, yours is super nice.
Oh, thank you.
It looks really good.
I feel like they're all the same. I had like made one CSS style sheet and that was it. Like see like interesting things for other people. I'm like, oh, he's probably really tired of seeing my apricot and aqua.
Mine is really, really basic, but I've gotten great feedback on everything I've submitted. So
well, then you need to show us.
I will. I mean, I've got my, I'll post my link again for my homepage.
Okay.
Because the stuff that he's reviewed already, I have it marked next to it that it's been reviewed or if it's ready for review, just so he knows. Yeah, I'll just post the link again on the Slack channel.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'd love to look.
So for next week, are we going to hope that Wesley and Pierre teach and they'll teach with?
Christine and David?
Yeah, so we'll just have 4 next week.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we can do that. Maybe we'll reach out and just let Pierre know, that he missed his lesson this week in case he didn't realize it. So he can prepare something and not lose points.
Well, he'll have to teach at least 2 more times, right? Because he's only taught once this semester.
Yeah, he missed.
Did he miss too?
Yeah.
Yeah, he missed one of them, but then he never responded to when he could do it or if he was planning on doing it.
Yeah, we can just remind them again, and if they choose not to, that's up to them. But we should give them the opportunity for sure.
Yeah.
David, did we say we were changing your topic for next week?
I think we discussed stuff, but I don't remember that. I've already.
I think Laura's was the only one that we changed.
Okay. You're already prepared?
Someone else's similar topic, I think, changed.
Oh, I know. Christina, we were talking about for week 10, if you wanted to do something besides the HTML5 tags, since we're going to be covering it next week and it's pretty simple stuff. We had talked about that, like if you were interested in doing a different topic, but nothing that.
I thought we made some decision. I just don't remember.
No, we put it off, and you were like, "Great, let's wait till the last minute."
Gotcha. So I'm going to put a question mark here then, so I don't go nuts.
Have you already started on your HTML5 tags stuff? Because if anyone feels there's something else that we need to cover more thoroughly, I know it was kind of confusing for me looking at like the whole animations, transitions, and transforms, because it looks like the ones individually are different, but the ones where it has it like all together, we have to use a it's like JavaScript or something to put them in. We have to. I had not sure exactly what it was. I'm trying to look at the.
Isn't that what Laura did last week?
That's what Ty did.
Oh, Ty.
But I'm looking at the schedule for teaching. So that week 7, he was creating CSS3 transitions and animations. And then Wesley was supposed to do that again this week. But then in week 10, there's another CSS3 animations, and Ty's teaching that again.
Oh, huh.
I don't know if that needs to change or if that,
Oh,
if I
maybe
don't have the most
so.
updated teaching schedule, if someone else.
I've just been using the link off of the Slack channel to look at it. So unless it's changed the link,
Yeah.
so when I need to go back and watch the video again, because that's the last one that I haven't started working on, is the transitions and animations together, and it says it's triggering them with JavaScript. Is that how he did it in his presentation last?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I didn't post the
back.
video till later in the week, but it is in the resource channel.
Okay. I had another class start, and so I've been kind of busy this week.
What? In the middle of the semester? Oh,
I did like a couple of 1-credit courses this semester, so one started just last week. But yeah, whatever you guys want to do with y'all's lessons. I guess I have, okay, that's it. I have transitions and transforms coming up, which is fine with me.
So last week, all three of you taught, Ty, Laura, and David, but this week, Wesley and Pierre didn't, right?
Right.
I'm just going to move this stuff, but Christopher did. Well, I thought we had this in a pivot table. Now I'm like, all the, and that was it for this week. So okay. So, oh, yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that looks good.
All right, and that's right. Sorry?
That was just an echo.
Oh, okay. Okay. Does that look right?
Looks good to me.
Okay. All right, I'm going to stop recording.
Oh, yeah.